First Alliance exposed the experimental treatments. Founder Sloan Rackmuth and board member Dr. Nancy Anderson both join me now. Ladies, thank you so much for being with us this morning. Sloan, I want to go to you first. Tell us, you guys, your group has exposed this, but how bad is it?
Well, it's really bad. We've been told for years by the left that this isn't going on. And if it is, it's maybe 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds here and there. But it is going on. You're right. In the state of North Carolina, well known, by the way, for its wonderful medical programs, we have Duke, which transitions children at 2. We've got UNC, who transitions children at 3. And then ECU has just added a program that is saturating not only rural health communities, but also schools, and they start at 4. I mean, these big systems cover the entire state of North Carolina, and they're doing it in family medicine. That's right, your corner doctors, their aim is to turn these places into pill mills for children, as young as 2, starting with the social and then moving with the hormones and so forth.
I mean, this is absolutely outrageous. When I read this, ages 2 to 4, Dr. Anderson, I want to talk about what she was talking about with the primary care physicians. So does this mean that ultimately the parents have to take their kids in to do this? I mean, they're 2 and 4. It's not like they're driving there. So is this falling on the parents? And as far as the primary care physicians, are they being threatened to do this, or is this just what they think needs to be done?
No, medicine has become an activist entity. There are activists that are now physicians and medical providers who have radical progressive ideologies, who have no problem with socially transitioning 2, 3, 4-year-olds in gender affirming care. And just to clarify, these institutions are very specific about the mode of treatment as gender affirming care, which means that this is a pathway, a highway that you can't get off of. As soon as the child thinks or pretends they might be a different sex, then that must be affirmed. And no questions asked lest you be labeled a transphobe. And there are doctors who are adamant about this type of treatment.
But Dr. Anderson, how in the world is a 2, 3, or 4-year-old questioning their gender? I mean, some of them are still in diapers.
That I don't know. I think it must come from external factors at that point. Parents and activist friends. We have whistleblower stories out there from Washington University of St. Louis and other parents who talk about how they've been indoctrinating these progressive ideologies, and they genuinely believe that the child can choose any gender they want. But as soon as they might start questioning or listening to other opinions, they're told they're being transphobic. And the child is kept on this pathway by activist medical professionals. It's incredibly unfortunate. I personally don't understand it. I think it's against the ethics of do no harm. Mm-hmm. None of this happened when I trained in general surgery. This wasn't even an issue 10 years ago.
Oh, I know. This is something that's popped up. I really think we're just getting a good handle on it and seeing what's happened in the last year or so.
Hey guys, so as you see, this is probably one of the most serious things that we've covered to date.
Absolutely.
We've been telling you guys about social emotional learning. We've been talking about that for 2.5 years, which focuses on identity development. That's the stated goal of the program from Castle SEL and from the DPI. We've got social emotional learning generating customers for this business now that we know is spread all over North Carolina. Then we have a widespread flooding the zone of school social workers, psychiatrists, psychologists, which we reported on that too, Nancy, by their own admission. A big part of their mandate is to push this trans agenda. We've got now the clinics that are inside of the school, and 2 years old and up, it's a problem. It's preposterous to believe that any 2-year-old could have gender dysphoria. This is not, it's absurd. And not only are we calling for a complete ban on any psychological treatments for transing, medical interventions in any way, and surgical. Not only we're calling for a complete ban, we're calling on the health committees in both chambers, as well as the North Carolina HHS, to launch an investigation on these ludicrous and very suspicious activities going on in our major teaching hospitals in North Carolina.
Absolutely. There needs to be an investigation done and get down to who the specific people are that are behind this.
Absolutely. I mean, we know that Duke has had massive bad publicity in an investigation. I think it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago with fake research. We know that gain of function research and what a deleterious effect that had on the entire nation and the entire world actually came out of UNC. So we're not going to pretend that any of these universities are have clean hands here.
Very good point. Very good point.
So we want an investigation done. These are our most vulnerable citizens, and we're going to really, really push for that. So let me give you kind of an update where we are. Yesterday, the American College of Pediatrics came out and not only endorsed this bill, they're behind helping us with our efforts. They've also quite obviously condemned 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, and 4-year-olds being transitioned in any way.
Yep. Common sense position is always good to hear.
Yeah. Talk about what it means, Nancy, because you're a doctor. Talk about what it means to have a major medical organization stand behind what we're doing here in North Carolina.
I mean, it's always good when doctors are able to come out and speak out about an issue, despite the crazy political pressure from radicals and people who have escaped the realm of reality. So we have a group of physicians now, pediatricians, which is even better because pediatricians tend to go the radical route for whatever reason, tend to politically lean to the left when they've done studies on politics and medicine. But this is a group of strong pediatricians who have come out independently, formed their own group, have taken a lot of heat because of it, but are trying to stand strong for the kids that they treat. And it's excellent work by Sloan to expose this, and to the point where these groups now are noticing and backing common sense to fight against it.
Absolutely. They hinted that this is a pretty egregious case that we've uncovered in North Carolina. It's not just one hospital, 2 or 3. It's really, all the major systems that are flooding the zone here. Now, UNC, they're hiding. They're under their desks. Nancy, you've made them go into hiding before. But
I don't know how many websites have taken down.
But this is important because I think it was a year and a half ago or so, you saw on their pediatrics website, they had that stupid gingerbread person schematic. And now we know why.
Right. No, they had the genderbread graphic. They had radical comments about the 1619 project, which have nothing to do with pediatric medicine as legitimate public resources, which has nothing to do with medicine. And the graphic is a laughable, silly graphic. And in pointing that out, of course, they took it down. Now, it doesn't mean that they're changing any sort of their belief system or approach to medicine. It's just that they got caught, and they know this. It proves that they know what they're doing is wrong, because if they completely believed in these as important resources, including the genderbread person, in reality, they would leave it up and they would say, no, we stand behind this. This is an important resource. We find it medically legitimate. We're going to leave it up. But they know what they're doing is wrong. So they just don't like getting caught at it, and they don't like getting exposed. So they pull it down, and then they hide it and continue doing what they're doing, but just behind the scenes. And they say tisk tisk to some of the radicals in their department and say, be a little careful with what you post online and that type of thing, but they go along with what they're doing. So it's proof that it's wrong. It's proof that they know what they're doing is wrong and that it's silly. And then we saw the same pattern as well, Sloan, when we exposed the CRT in preschool, where all of a sudden the training materials came down off the website because they know, right. So they know what they're doing is wrong, and they don't they don't want people to see it. And now we see it again. Sloan, your tweet went viral. We found the resources on the UNC website, public website, that show they were giving psychological gender affirming care to kids as young as 3. The referral form said as young as 3. And that night, after your tweet went viral, I looked again, and sure enough, the website is defunct. Fortunately, there is an internet web archive of that site, so you can still access it on the web archive. But UNC does not want people to see what they are doing, and they therefore know, it proves that they know that what they're doing is wrong.
Yeah. Well, I think that Nelson Dollar is a failed Republican politician who used to be in the House here from Wake County. He is now the lobbyist for the child psychiatry program over at UNC. I think he made a phone call and said, listen, guys, cool it, because we still want our cash. And I'm trying to figure out, Amy McConkley has just followed me on Twitter. Doesn't mean a lot, but what I think is that she wants to make damn sure, honey, she gets a jump on whatever else UNC needs to take off of its public website, because she's lobbying so that they can get more of our taxpayer dollars. Not going to work. You can take it down, but by the time we put it up, we've already got it archived, etc. There's really nowhere to run. But you're right, this is insidious stuff, and it leads us to this bill, Youth Protection Act. So I'm showing you right now. You see all the highlight posts of this. All of this stuff has been removed from the bill. So there is no banning of hormones, which will sterilize children. There's no banning of conversion therapy, which is manipulating the brains of children to make them dependent on medication for life. And there's also no whistleblower protection here for employees who want to come forward. I might add that some have as of today. And there's also no ability to sue past the statute of limitations. Look, if you really care about your citizens, you're not going to remove their ability to take care of themselves and protect themselves.
Exactly. It's concerning to me that they made so many changes in one foul swoop. And while I think it is good that they leave the surgical protections in there, because certainly on this slippery slope, even though it doesn't seem that we're there yet, we could certainly be there in a couple of years. But it really doesn't do enough to attack the insidious activities that are going on now that UNC is blatantly trying to hide. And we really need to get a handle on those. And to get it so thoroughly was really disappointing. But it's positive that it got through the House. It's positive that we have some strong Republicans in the House who are able to make some last minute changes to provide some wiggle room in there. It's a positive that we have strong Republicans standing up for that bill, that Kristen Baker stood up for the bill as a physician. Right. And we even had a couple Democrats vote for the bill, because even a few Democrats out there have common sense and know that what is going on is wrong. And I commend them as well. And they should get our commendation from our supporters as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So what they're doing, is saying, look, if children manage to survive abortion, they won't, but if they do, they have. And we've got another plan that will effectively kill their souls, at least. You cannot tell me a 2-year-old has any awareness whatsoever of their gender or has the ability to be dysphoric because of it. Now, we've gotten a couple of whistleblowers from Duke, and the way they say that it's rolling out, Nancy, is this. Nobody in their right mind is actually bringing their 2, 3, or 4-year-old in for gender dysphoria. So that is a relief, because yesterday we were thinking, what the hell's wrong with these parents?
Right.
The way that it apparently works is little Johnny is not eating very well. We've all seen that. And a lot of us have taken our kids in because can't get them to eat what they need to eat, right? And they're gaining weight or losing weight or whatever. It's a common problem. Mm-hmm. And they'll take little Johnny in, good meaning parents that care for their children, and they wind up being told, listen, this appetite problem or this weight gain or whatever, this is just a symptom of something called gender dysphoria. And
Evil,
parents
evil.
and parents are roped in to treating some mythical underlying disease. And you can understand as a parent, if you're told that by a doctor, you trust the science, right? You trust the doctor, that you could be manipulated into believing that. And apparently, allegedly, we're still checking it out, but that's what's happening. And that makes so much more sense, Nancy, than people taking their 2-year-olds in.
Absolutely. I mean, we do know it's, all over the schools. We did have that story recently where, they showed that movie where a preschool teacher or daycare worker or someone was reading the book discussing non-binary with the tiny toddler. So we do know that it's out there in the social world, and there are some aggressive parents out there. But it does make a lot of sense if these documents support this, and in working through it, that there are some parents out there bringing their kids in for totally different conditions that are vague and have a wide array of differential, and are being told that, there's a psychological issue, potentially gender dysphoria, driving it. That is something that I believe could happen. I think it's evil and unethical, but it's certainly probable.
Yeah, well, that's why we need an investigation.
Right. Exactly. That's why we need these agencies to help us investigate and unearth what's going on, and see the documents and show them in public, because as we know, UNC is already busy hiding them.
Speaking of that, we've got a few documents that Duke also hid, and that is this. I'll put it up on the screen. As you can see, a year ago, they proudly admitted on their website that they do treat 16 and under with puberty blockers. So the notion that they're not doing that, we shouldn't believe that. And I'm going to put something else up in just a few minutes, but I'm going to get back to this. So the bill, House Bill 808, was voted on last night. And again, all it is doing is protecting against surgery. Surgeries, we all know, are done at private clinics anyway. It's really not being done, that we're aware of, on minors. So Neil Jackson, Republican representative out of Moore County, made this amendment. I'm going to put it up here. So what it does is it restricts state funding. That was his original amendment, but he also removes surgical in these two places. So now we're talking about procedures. Now, he did the best that he could do. We have a long way to go, but Nancy, I'm thinking that since we got rid of the descriptive surgical, we might have some room to move.
I would think so, if it's not limited to the descriptive word surgical. I mean, some of these puberty blockers are certainly procedural in that, they're given underneath the skin and left in for a month at a time or whatever. There's certainly procedures involved. So if you take out surgical from that wording, then yeah, I think it could cover a more broad, makes sense that it would cover a more broad array of treatments, not limited to just surgeries. But I commend the change. Hopefully the Senate can do more with the bill.
They are going to do more. They're going to have to do more. This is insanity. So last night before the vote, it obviously is a heated issue. I mean, we're going to concede that, but toddlers being trans is a very serious issue. So Representative Ken Fontenot, also Republican, got up and made a very impassioned plea based on what his lived experience is, right, and his people, and spoke about eugenics. And in his mind, this is a lot like eugenics. And it is. And the reason for that is it's sterilizing children. And so Deb Butler, a psychopathic windbag, stood up and called him ignorant.
Unreal.
And had to be calm, and had to be calmed down by Speaker Moore. And I commend Speaker Moore right now for doing that. And the reason why these liberals are over spinning on this axle about this whole thing is that they are very mad that we're talking about the treatments causing sterility.
Yes. They don't like that because they know it's terrible. So they get especially mad when it comes up.
They really do. So let me play this clip. from an expert, and you be the judge.
Pivotal blockers were added, and then estrogen was added to her therapy. Avery's testes never developed. In fact, she does not make any sperm. And her reproductive capability to be a biological parent has been eliminated. Her testes are non-functional. And in medicine, don't we often recommend the removal of non-functional organs, like an appendix? So therefore, does it make sense for Avery to wait until she's 18? Or should older adolescents be allowed to have surgery before the age of 18?
And then I'll come back. Okay. So we heard it right from the horse's mouth, if you will. This causes sterility. Now let me put up another thing from UNC. This is an internal document, Nancy. We found this. It comes from a presentation that's meant to really talk about what they're doing at this gender clinic through the broader medical community. So let's look at this. And it says right on here, fertility preservation. Okay, it says two things. Number one, that caught my eye, Tanner 2. Tanner 2, guys, is a fancy way of saying 11 and a half years old.
Right. It's just before the secondary sex characteristics of puberty really start to develop. So just before like pubic hair, just before enlargement of say the penis and that type of thing. So you're right on the bridge of entering puberty.
So this either UNC is saying that this is a wholly unnecessary process and that they're doing it anyway and billing for it. That, I don't know, seems like a crime or unethical. Or they are conceding with their own documentation that these things meant to arrest puberty cause sterility.
Absolutely. And they all say they're following WPATH, which is the World Professional Association of Transgender Health, and going through latest WPATH standard of care number 8. They even come out and say you need to discuss the potential loss of fertility with these youths, with Tanner stage 2 individuals, 10, 11, 12 years old. So yeah, that representative who is attacking Fontenot for no reason and showing herself to be a loon is actually not in line with the official World Professional Association of Trans Health. So she's the one who needs to do the research and understand that she's misinforming the public and incorrectly attacking a representative with legitimate concerns.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Let's put up right now what the American College of Pediatrics says. So they right here, they acknowledge that that's a concern. And by the way, it happens to be this treatment is not FDA approved. So we are showing you that Duke and UNC are both saying they're giving off-label treatments and by their own admission say cause sterility. So that's not Ken Fontenot's words. That's the institutions and that's professional organizations. But I'm just telling all of you out there that the consensus, even from the people doing this, is that it causes sterility. So
exactly.
Yeah. So next steps for HB 808, given the seriousness of what's going on here in North Carolina, anything less than a full ban on minors is not going to work.
No, this really needs to be shut down. There is a huge social contagion element with these kids, the prepubescent and adolescent kids who are on social media. There's a huge political element driving this, and there's a huge monetary motivation driving this. And all of those things are very, very powerful and will ruin this generation of kids if the legislature can't step up and stop it. And it's a very serious, serious problem. And North Carolina is on the forefront of this battle, whether we want to be or not. We are. Unreal, never would have thought we'd be here 5-10 years ago. Don't like the fact, Sloan, that I'm talking about these situations on a news network. It's very weird and surreal, but we're here. And so we need to stand up and fight it. That's where we are.
Yeah, everybody needs to fight it. This is the the eugenics movement of our day. Don't Ask Us, Duke, UNC, American College of Pediatrics, and WPATH have all told us so. So we've got that. Then as a complementary thing, the parental rights bill that the Senate passed early on, it's going to help because it's going to prevent grooming. I'm not happy with it. I mean, it's till 4th grade. It needs to be really all the way up. And it's going to make sure that anybody that comes in, any medical staff or, psychiatrists, psychologists, which are flooding the zone right now, they're not going to be able to do these treatments on children and parents not know about it. Because Nancy, what we're talking about, this social transitioning and this mind screwing around with, that is being done in schools. That can continue to be done until this is passed. We're going to have to ban this shit right now and shut it down.
Absolutely. I don't understand why the schools I understand why with their mindset, but in a common sense world, the schools are for academics and, some support to the students who really genuinely need it and don't have it at home. But they don't need to be messing around with identities. They don't need to be messing around with psychological conditions. That's not what the purpose of a school education is. And the fact that academics, you don't even hear it in the conversation anymore. And instead, all these teachers are online, whether it's social media, Twitter, TikTok, just completely emphasizing identities and the sexuality of their kids or themselves. It's crazy town. And SEL is a gateway. Social emotional learning is a gateway to allow those aggressively political or obsessed with identity teachers. It's certainly not every teacher, but some of these radical teachers, it's a gateway to allow them in to start messing with these kids' identities. It's terrible thing.
Yeah. I mean, they've got the salespeople for this inside of the schools. And so we have a crisis. We're now, Nancy, we find ourselves and our constituents all over the state. Thank you for this much support, by the way. We all find ourselves going, well, you know what? We were fairly moderate, like we could have 90% of it passed and still be happy. Hell no, it needs to be 100% passed and investigations. That's where we are today. So we're going to keep you guys informed of everything that's going on. And, the two things we're pushing for, Parental Rights Act that was passed in the full Senate early on. And we need all of this stuff put back in the Youth Protection Act on the House side. What's our timeline? I don't know. I think this will be could possibly be taken up next session, maybe earlier. This is a must-have, not a nice-to-have. Period.
It's absolutely, and it needs to be a priority must-have, especially among the elected Republican constituents and hopefully some of the common sense Democrats, because enough is enough. These people are experimenting on little kids. We have no idea what's really going on behind the scenes. Documents online disappear. Institutions remain silent. And our kids are at risk. This is not how society should work.
No, I mean you're really aborting their souls. I mean, it's the honest truth. The soul that is embodied and endowed to every human by God, the creator, what you're doing is you're removing that. So it is an abortion of the soul of the children who are taken and treated in this way. So this is the seriousness of it.
Right. And when you think about the combination of the fact that you have a pediatric endocrinologist that we played earlier from Stanford who does gender affirming care, who's, well established with experience with these hormone and puberty blocking drugs, saying that they shrivel up, organs to a point where you can remove them because they're non-functional. You have WPATH saying that you need to make sure to tell these kids that they're potentially at risk for losing fertility. You have slides and treatments planned where you could try to preserve, um, sperm and eggs and that type of thing in young children, so they could potentially have kids later, maybe, if that even works. And then you have the fact that these drugs are not FDA approved for gender dysphoria, for these treatments, that it's all experimental at this point. And we're not experimenting. We're not talking about 23, 24, 25-year-olds. We're talking about 11, 12, 13-year-olds with these drugs, potentially earlier. It's
Don't
sick.
forget Europe. Don't forget to add Europe. Because
Right. And we also have, on top of all of that, we also have the pile of literature coming out of Europe and the Cass review, Tavistock, that talks about how this failed, that the gender affirming aspect of this was a major disappointment. Silence physicians, silence nurses, led to several side effects that were unknown to the patients, and a complete mess. So we have piles of this, stacked up in our faces, and we can't, get something passed to fight against this. We have to listen to some lunatics who are saying, well, you're just making that up, when it's actually out there, easy to see. I don't get it. It's wrong. It's evil. We need to buckle down and win this war.
Yeah. Supermajority, and we can't even do this. What is it worth, a supermajority? Now, I know there's a lot of great Republicans in both the House and Senate who are very sincere. There's also, I would say, some pragmatists that were like, well, we've been so extreme on abortion, which is a lie. 12 weeks, I think, is reasonable by every measure, as evidenced by Democrats going along. But anyway, there's some pragmatists saying, well, we've got a horse trade and we're going to forego this for that. No. You expanded Medicaid. You're also putting in a program that will advertise Medicaid services inside of the school. And if you did all that and you leave this untouched, you will not be reelected, for a lot of you, because you may as well. People would rather have a real Democrat than a fake Democrat every day of the week when they're on the ballot. Remember that.
Absolutely. I agree.
So, all right. Well, we've got our marching orders, guys. You're going to have to, be pleasantly persistent with every single Republican and Democrat, okay, in your district, maybe in your neighboring districts, okay, maybe the ones on the health committee. You've got to drive them for complete passage on both Parental Rights Act and then the Youth Protection Act. So I'll leave you with that, and we will be updating you next week. And thank you, all of you. Thank you. We've gotten word from many representatives that you have been burning up the phone lines, again, being pleasantly persistent, telling people no dice. They got to pass this in its entirety. So thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.